The problem of heresy was the subject on September 7th, 2025, when the Reverend Dr. Mark Y.A. Davies spoke at Red River Unitarian Universalist Church. Welcome from Red River Unitarian Universalist. Thank you for joining us. The religion we practice in this church is centered in the here and now, rather than the hereafter. It is more of a thinking kind of religion than a believing kind. It is governed more by reason than by tradition, more concerned with the present than the past. It is concerned with getting the most out of life, with living wisely and well. A major aim for us is continually expanding our understanding of life and ourselves. This church is a community of people who share in the free and open search for a level of understanding that will enable us to be more fully and effectively alive. The church does not tell us what we must believe. It stimulates us to think. It supports us in our search. You are welcome to join us. Our centering value is love, with transformation, generosity, equity, interdependence, justice, and pluralism.
May we come into this building, hallowed by generations of thoughtful worship. May we come into this company of this congregation, enlightened by reason and moved by concern and love. May we come with open minds and warm hearts. May we here cultivate a confidence that human intelligence and human affection can temper and ultimately overcome cruel circumstance and misguided malice with faith in the power of good over evil. So may we find our social responsibilities and our individual salvation. At this time, we have an opportunity to light the candles of community. You can light a candle for a joy or a concern, to remember someone, or simply to bring more light into our space.
Sings to the universe through me.
graphic up there was perfect because as we speak, we're experiencing a lunar eclipse right now, which we can't see in this hemisphere. Let's stand in body or spirit for our chalice lighting, the spoken affirmation, and the lighting of the peace candle. We light this chalice with an open heart. We light this chalice with resolve. We light this chalice with tears still fresh on our cheeks. We light this chalice in hope, a tiny flame we nurture. We light this chalice with reverence for this place, for these people, for this time. We light this chalice with all our soul's longing to be who we are, to be who we will become, to be ourselves. We light this chalice in self-love, in giving love, in holy love. Let's join together in the spoken affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and freedom, and to help one another. We light this peace candle to remind us of all the places in the world where there is no peace. Join me in the words now on the screen. Lead me from death to life, from falsehood to truth. Lead me from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead me from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts, our world, our universe. May you be seated. Our opening thought comes from Marcus Aurelius, his Meditations. Anytime I see that name, I think of the name my mom used to use when she was upset with me. Marcus Aurelius Humans Davies, and she threw Marco Polo in there too, I think. These words are from Marcus Aurelius. If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth, by which no one was ever truly harmed. It is the person who continues in his self-deception and ignorance who is harmed.
Our
Our next reading comes from Malcolm X, the autobiography of Malcolm X. He writes, "Despite my firm convictions, I have been always a person who tries to face facts and to accept the reality of life as new experience and new knowledge unfolds it. I have always kept an open mind, which is necessary to the flexibility that must go hand in hand with every form of intelligent search for truth." For our time of meditation, we'll be hearing the words from Douglas Taylor, meditation on courage and vulnerability. Let's take a moment to take some deep breaths and sit comfortably with our feet firmly on the ground. Taking a deep breath in and out. In and out. I am learning to let down my guard. We all know about the deep instinct to respond to difficulty and stress with either fight or flight, with force or swift retreat, with decisive attack or prompt withdrawal. When faced with stress or difficulty or challenge, I am learning to let down my guard. I am learning to be vulnerable. I am seeking the courage to be open. I would have my vulnerability be a choice made from my courage rather than my fear. I would have my vulnerability be my strength. May my strength be not found as a hard shell of defense or a sharp weapon of attack. May my strength instead be found in an open stance of kindness and empathy, like a tree bending gracefully in the windstorm. May my strength be found in a willingness to join in the suffering of others, like a forest of trees together in a storm. May I choose to be receptive rather than protected, sharing rather than shielded. In this way, may I face my own suffering and the suffering of others with a nimble capacity to respond with compassion. In this way, may my vulnerability be an invitation for others to meet me in the open field with a yearning for understanding and peace. I know this is a risk. I know I may be hurt. I know things may not go well. But still, I will seek the courage to set aside the closed fist, the stinging retort, the barbed judgment of others. I will seek within myself the strength to stand exposed and unguarded before the world, in the wind, open to difficulty, not because I cannot be any other way, but because I have chosen this better way. I am still learning to be vulnerable. I seek the courage to be so vulnerable. May I have others who can help me to be so courageous. May my example serve others as well as myself, and may my strength be our strength in sharing this life openly with others. Our next reading comes from Carl Sagan from The Demon-Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Dark. Sagan writes, "At the heart of science is an essential balance between two seemingly contradictory attitudes, an openness to new ideas, no matter how bizarre or counterintuitive they may be, and the most ruthless skeptical scrutiny of all ideas, old and new. This is how deep truths are winnowed from deep nonsense."
Touch the earth, reach the sky, sun on shores while spirits fly, over the ocean, over the land, our faith, our quest to understand. Touch the earth, reach the sky, children as the reason why. In our lives the answers show, and by our love they learn and grow. Touch the earth, reach the sky, all are born and all shall die. Life's the climb left in between, to follow a star, to build a dream. Touch the earth, reach the sky, hug the land, feel the pride. May we see where
With the rise of Christian nationalism and also with the 1700th year anniversary of the Nicene Creed in the Christian tradition, with both these things happening together, I've been hearing in Christian circles the word heresy being used quite a bit in an attempt to put forward one particular version or one particular theological view of what is right and true, and labeling everything else as wrong and false, and referring to it as heresy, which carries more weight than just being false, because there's a sense of sin, I think, present in that word heresy, and a need for accountability, a need perhaps even for punishment when someone is a heretic or being accused of heresy. The use of this word, heresy, in my opinion, in any context, is in itself problematic. I shy away from it, even when describing things I really don't like. From my tradition, I might have that kind of inkling, that feeling, I want to call it heresy. I really don't like that view. I really don't like that position. But I have stayed away from that because of the historical violence that's connected with this word. Through the violent enforcement of a doctrinal purity created by a group of all men 1,700 years ago at the Council of Nicaea. And it was a view that was backed by the force of empire, the violent force of empire. This word, heresy, has become a clobber concept to enforce one patriarchal version of Christianity, much like certain passages in the Bible have been used to clobber persons with different views, especially with diverse sexual orientations and gender identities. This perspective, I think, has nothing to do with living out the way of love and justice for the transformation of the world for good. It is more about one side wanting to be right and one side wanting to be in control, and those who are in control using this word, this perspective, to keep control. In my experience, most Christians who use the word heresy to describe the theological position of another person, they're doing it, I think, from a stance of coercion. Because the accusation contains within it not only the judgment that the other person has a wrong position, but as I said a moment ago, but that they are also sinful for holding such a position. And often, though not always, there is a presumption that the person holding such a position, such a heretical position, ought to be held accountable or even punished by church authorities. Those of you who know me know that I think it's much healthier for religious communities and for community in general to let our theological disagreements be simply that, disagreements, rather than accusing persons of heresy or calling them heretics, especially given the extreme historical violence associated with such accusations. Accusations of heresy are used to shut down. They're used to shut down discourse. They're used to shut down disagreement. They're used to shut down diversity, rather than opening up fair-minded and open-minded expressions and discussions of theological differences, of different views, of different beliefs. Accusations of heresy are almost always an expression of one or more logical fallacies. I'm sorry, I teach philosophy. I got to bring in logical fallacies in every once in a while. But they are. If you listen closely, the accusations are connected to a number of logical fallacies, including but not limited to straw person arguments, looking at the weakest possible perspective of the opposing position, appeals to authority. The church authorities say it must be true. Ad populum arguments. So many people believe it. It must be true. And oftentimes in accusations of heresy, in the accusation itself, you see an ad hominem type argument, an attack on the person. Such accusations are made to assert control and to create adherence to authority, rather than representing an open-minded and fair-minded search for truth, meaning, and value. Prior to the rule of one of my least favorite persons in history, Emperor Constantine, prior to the rule of Emperor Constantine, Christian churches did not have a formal way to resolve the many different and diverse beliefs among the various Christian movements and communities. That doesn't mean they didn't have differences. That doesn't mean they didn't have arguments and disagreements. But when theological differences were experienced, there was academic debate, ecclesial debate, and sometimes even heated arguments that took place among Christians who had different theological positions, but there was no mechanism of enforcing one theological position over another until Constantine. We'll talk about that in a moment. One of the most telling signs that persons have succumbed to an imperial version of Christianity, that is, a version of Christianity that was approved by Constantine and was favorable to the power and control of the empire over Christians, but also all citizens, in order to keep control and order in the empire. One of the most telling signs that persons who have succumbed to that form of Christianity, I think, is when they use the word heresy. When they use that word to describe theological views that differ from their own, and then they attempt to enforce what they perceive to be the correct theology through institutional sanctions to punish the heretic. This is the attitude that led to the Crusades. This is the attitude that led to inquisitions, to colonialism, church trials, and worse. And now it is fueling various forms of Christian nationalism around the world. Now to the Council of Nicaea. 1700 years ago, the leaders of the Christian churches in the Roman Empire accepted an invitation by Constantine to come together and kind of get their act together on church doctrine. I don't know if Constantine was that concerned about what doctrine they chose to lift up as the official doctrine, but he wanted them to get their act together, and he agreed to enforce the adherence to whatever their interpretation of Jesus was. This, I think, is one of the most tragic moments in Christian history, because ideas about a person who was unjustly executed by the Roman Empire now became the basis upon which the Roman Empire would burn books and unjustly exile, persecute, and even execute persons who dared to have differing ideas about Jesus. Rather than being an event to celebrate, which has been happening so much over the past 6 months, the Nicene Creed, the Council of Nicaea, rather than being an event to celebrate, I would say the evil twisting of the meaning of Jesus' life and teaching into the grounds for the use of religious violence is something we should lament and from which we should all repent. As we revisit the 1700-year-old tragic irony of Christianity becoming the basis for the use of state violence to enforce doctrinal purity among Christian churches that began at the Council of Nicaea, instead of celebrating Constantine as the first, quote, Christian Roman emperor, it would be more appropriate to remember him as a power-hungry dictator who used the enforced unity of the Christian churches for the sake of imperial order. And to remember, a lot of people don't remember this about Constantine, but to remember that just 1 year after the Council of Nicaea, Constantine murdered his son, Crispus, with poison, and his wife, Fausta, by boiling her alive. The partnership of churches with an evil and murderous emperor or dictator and the Christian church leaders' acceptance of the use of state violence to benefit one interpretation of Jesus over other interpretations are the antithesis of the way of love, compassion, and justice that we see exemplified in what is portrayed about Jesus' life and teachings in the Gospels. And lest we think that the acceptance of state violence by Christian churches to enforce doctrinal purity and punish diverse interpretations of the divine was just a one-off thing with the Council of Nicaea and its immediate aftermath of book burning, exiles, and executions, let us not forget that churches and imperial powers have continued to work together through the centuries to stifle dissent, to stifle diversity of thought, and to stifle religious freedom through inquisitions, crusades, and colonial expansion, often justified as Christian mission. And then also, there have been executions. There has been genocide. And today, we see this dangerous and deadly partnership of religious intolerance and state violence being expressed again in the rise of Christian nationalism. Whatever the intent of the bishops at the Council of Nicaea may have been, and many of the bishops at the Council of Nicaea may have had good intent, maybe even great intent. But the practical effect of their work was to tame Jesus for imperial purposes, with deadly consequences for millions of persons throughout history. In 2009, Naveed Sikh estimated, and I've seen similar estimates by a number of other scholars, that Christians are responsible for killing approximately 177, almost 178 million people throughout history. If you want to look at the source for that, see Body Count, a quantitative review of political violence across world civilizations. One need simply compare the kill count by Christians before and after the Council of Nicaea to see how deadly Nicene imperial Christianity has been for humanity. You will know them by their fruit. As we live through this time in which the rich and powerful continue to use religion to persecute and oppress the weak and vulnerable throughout the world, it is critical for all persons, but it's really critical for persons who claim to be followers of the way of Jesus, to remember that the rich and powerful were much more often than not the ones who ultimately determined what was considered heretical. This is something to think about. This is something to think about. When you hear people accusing others of heresy, when you see others silencing theological dissent, and this dissent that they're trying to silence, that they're attempting to label as heresy, this dissent is so urgently needed right now. This dissent is so urgently needed as Christian nationalism continues to increase the kill count of imperial Christianity. At this time, we have an opportunity for giving. You can bring your gifts to the table. There's also opportunities to give online.
Please join voices in our closing hymn. Life is the greatest gift of all the riches on this earth. Life and its creatures, great and small, of high and lowly birth. So treasure it and measure it with deeds of shining worth. Mind is the brightest gift of all, its thought no barrier mars. It seeks creation's hidden plan, its quest surmounts all bars. It rains the wind, it chains the storm, it weighs the outmost stars. We are of life, its shining gift, the measure of all things. Up from the dust our temples lift, with vision soars on wings. For seed and root, for flower and fruit, our grateful spirit sings.
Let's stand in body or spirit for our benediction and extinguishing the chalice. Our benediction comes from Eric Williams. We all emerge. We all emerge from, dwell within, are transformed by, and called back to love. May your mind be humbled before this mystery. May your heart grow hopeful by it. May you be sustained by this love always. Let's join together in extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish these flames, but not the light of truth. the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.